Hey guys, welcome in, welcome back. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. This is 17 and some change. I'm EcuDez17. I'm coming to bring you my 2 cents. So we got a decent show lined up for you for today. By the way, welcome to the month of December. We're now in December, no longer in November. So now we're gonna start looking towards everything that December entails. So that should be interesting. But there's gonna be plenty of time to talk about December type of things. We're not gonna really talk too much about December type of things at this point. Shout out to Shador Sanders for um, retaining his starting role. Um, you know the they the team took a tough L last week, and he didn't play great. He played average, but um, I'm glad he's still starting. And I am no longer under the belief that he's being sabotaged. I think it's getting a little bit played out on the internet. Um, in those particular circles. I mean, you guys know that for whatever small part of me still follows football, I'm a Shador Sanders fan. Um, and I think I think it's very fishy that he got drafted in the fifth round. Um, but I think once you drafted him in the fifth round, you had to play Gabriel first because he's the third rounder, and now it's Shador's turn, and I don't think they're trying to sabotage him now. Um, but I just recently, I don't know if you guys, everybody in their lifetime encounters a situation where they have some plumbing issues, where something's like clogging, um, not draining all the way. I was having an issue with a shower recently. Any of y'all out there who are like landlords and stuff like that, you would deal with this as well. Um, I was having an issue with a shower where it wasn't draining fully, and it was getting to the point where you're freaking ankle high, and this thing's taking fucking hours to drain, um, sometimes even days, and it's not sustainable. It's annoying and uh, very suboptimal. Let's put it that way. And so I was going in. I had I've already complained to you guys in the past about modern piping, how they make it go down to go up, where they'll have it like just like shapes like this and whatnot. And it's like they got all these L's and elbows and stuff like that. And it's like, I always advocate for stacked plumbing, where it's just like it just goes straight down. It uses gravity. Anywho, um, so I had gotten like a 1.5 gallon um water vac and wet vac, and I would suck out the water, and try to go in there with like different snakes and stuff like that. Um, I had one. It was good. It was like, I don't know, whatever, a few feet, and it had like a claw on it, and I was getting some traction there. I felt like I was getting something. Um, I was onto something there, and but it wasn't doing it. It wasn't. I wasn't able to get that clog, and so I bought a 7 gallon, um, a 7 gallon wet vac from, um, from Walmart, and it just kept sucking and sucking, and it fucking it pulled out a razor, like a whole razor, um, that must have been there for like 20 years. Just doing the math based on like who's shaved their legs in that shower. Um, yeah, that shit must have been there for like 20 years, and crazy. It's like that vacuum, like the way, like, because it took everything. It took the razor. It took like everything that was like behind it. Like it it took care of everything, and then the shower was awesome from that point on. It just drained, everything drained and stuff like that. So I guess the moral of the story is, 7 gallon industrial wet vacs are extremely powerful. I guess that's the moral of the story for that for today. You know. um so the next thing I'm gonna mention is gonna kind of lead us into the topic of the day. Um, I had a coworker um, die recently, um, and he was young and stuff like that. Um, he was only, in his early 40s, and it was I don't know much about like what happened or whatever, so I don't want to tell you guys, oh, make sure you're watching your health, make sure you're doing this, that, and the other thing. Like, I know it was a health event and stuff like that, but life is it's very, very fragile, um and humans are so strong but so weak at the same time. Like, we're like the craziest oxymoron. Like, we're like those pieces of glass where it's like the eye drop or whatever, where it's like undestructible under any amount of pressure on one side, but like if you tap the other side, it just explodes. Like, we're so it's such an odd combination of like um strength and fragility that we tote the line on. But life is rare. I always say it. I always say, like, life is super rare. Like, the fact that you're alive, like, in this pocket, within within this 100-year pocket, let's say. um and a lot of people only get half of that, and some people get freaking a tenth of that, and some people, like, you know what I mean. And so, like, it's a very it's a blink. It's a blink of the eye in terms of eternity. And so that's why, when you ask the next question that I'm gonna propose, it's tempting. You know, which you know, it's just for fun. It's not saying like, oh, we know better than the design of the universe or whatever. Though I don't see if it's wrong to view aging as a disease, or as like a health problem that can be overcome. I um i saw something yesterday that was talking about how they're successful in some sort of animal trials in regards to reversing X amount of years of wear and tear on the totality of an individual, or like they're like taking years off of like these rats and stuff, and they're using like the most cutting edge genetics. But and like people are sad when they find out like somebody dies, and then like, unless you're somebody big, then you kind of you're forgotten very quickly. Like, people aren't gonna, regardless of like who you are, like people aren't, like, the world keeps going. You're I know a lot of people, they think about offing themselves, and they like envision like what the reaction would be, like, oh, I bet you people will miss me then, and oh, people will be sorry about how they treated me then, this, that. And it's like people aren't gonna mourn you the way that you, I mean, I can't speak to you specifically, but like, by and large, like outside of tight family, and like outside of like if you have like a codependent partner, or like outside of like, or like parents, or like kids or siblings, like whatever, like specifically for like younger people who are like in like school, or something like that, like, you're it goes by, like, people, you're forgotten very quickly, right? Like, you hear the news, a room full of people hear the news, a room full of acquaintances hear the news, they all get teary-eyed, they ask what happened, maybe one of them cries, and then within 45 minutes, like, people are doing other things, they're doing their thing, they're making jokes with one another, they're laughing, and like, it's just that. And then like, and now you're just like, oh, remember that person? Oh yeah, that sucked. Damn, poor that person. And then that's it. And then your name gets brought up less and less. and um and then nobody remembers. Nobody cares, you know? Um but that kind of leads me to my next topic. I was just thinking about the quote there, like let the dead bury their dead. Um but it does bring me to the next topic, which is the main topic for the whole thingamabob, the main topic for our discussion, and that is if you were offered the chance at immortality, you cease to age, and you you live forever. Would you take that? Would you take that? And I like I like I like different people's answers. Leave your answers in the comments and stuff like that. I like different people's answers. It made me laugh when I asked one dude and he just like enthusiastically, like without even second questioning, he was just like, yeah, hell yeah. Um, and it just fits his like who he is to the T. Um, a lot of people say no because of the the tragedy that is losing everybody before you go. Like you watch everybody die before you go, like all your loved ones and stuff like that. I had a couple no's because of that. And as far as I'm concerned, it's like that's gonna happen anyways. We're already doomed to watch all of our loved ones die. Um, I mean, not the ones that are younger than us, um, God willing, but you know, and I don't know if in my immortality hypothetical you retain the ability to have children. Um, but yeah, like that's in our mortal lives, everybody's gonna what? You're gonna turn down immortality for like the three people you might have outlived. Um, I don't know if that's really the reason. That's a reason. Like I can't poo poo their reason. Like their reason. Like, but for me, that's not a good reason. My original instinct was to say yes. My original instinct was to say yes, and my biggest concern would be, how does God feel about that, and like what's my relationship with God now? If I took the pill that made me like live forever. Like I don't think he would really like that much. I think he would be like, "Hey, that's not what wasn't part of the plan," or but then you get into like destiny and predeterminism and free choice and different stuff like that. And like, you know, the Christian God might very well forgive me, you know. But that's kind of an interesting twist to it. Like that's kind of an interesting thing to ponder, so to speak. And I had one person tell me that they wouldn't they wouldn't um they they wouldn't want to take that proposition because what if you get kidnapped, or what if you end up doing a life sentence? And I was like, that's interesting. Like, don't go to jail. Like, don't do anything that would like send you to prison. I wouldn't, that's not something especially for life. I'm like, bro, like, what are you doing that's gonna send you to prison for life? Like, I would have never thought about that. Like, um, what are you, a murderer? Like, what the fuck? Like, what? Um, but yeah, no, like, and then he's like, well, if you live forever, then at some point, like, that's definitely gonna happen to you because it's forever. And I was like, wow, that's a good point. Like, if you live for infinity, then theoretically you should experience like every effing thing that you could that one could possibly experience. That's like saying the universe, if the universe is infinite and the multiverse is infinite, then there has to be um an infinite amount of parallel realities to this one, where in one you have a red sweatshirt today, in one you have a yellow, in one you said hi, etc., etc. um it's just such a large number, right? But I mean, if you're going by that mathematics, then the Fermi paradox shouldn't exist, and like we should definitely be seeing aliens all over the place, even though now we are getting like a lot closer to seeing aliens and stuff like that. But you know, I see it the other way. Does an infinite amount, I don't think that's true though. Does an infinite amount of time on the planet mean that every possible thing that could ever happen to you will happen to you at some given point in time? Like, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? But I saw it the other way. I was like, um I could get I'd be so fucking rich. I'd be so rich if I lived for eternity, because man, the only, like, the real ingredient, the main ingredient, and when I say main ingredient, it's like saying ice is the main ingredient in a snow cone. Like, that's how much of a main ingredient it is, and in investing its time. You know what I mean? And time is to investing what ice is to a freaking snow cone. And without it you got nothing. And everything else is capital. But um yeah, you freaking, you have a stock you've been sitting on for 500 years. Like, are you kidding me? um Talk about playing the long game. And but yeah, I'd also like the idea of, people say, oh, you would get bored. And to me it's like, no, you can be all kinds of different things. Like, you can experience like all kinds of different lives. Like you could pursue law enforcement, you could pursue fire, you could pursue um all kinds of different lives, and experience all different roles and things like that. And but then they say, oh, but then you won't have, you know that's in response to boredom and novelty. I mean, there's more. um Combating that, um if we're forgetful creatures, like your 7,000th sunset isn't going to hit, the same. After 70,000 years of sunsets, they're not going to hit the same, and I would argue that they would, you know and and that's just a metaphor for experiences. But we're forgetful creatures. If we lack an experience for a certain amount of time, it becomes novel once again. We rediscover it. If you love pizza, you get tired of pizza, just give it a couple weeks, just give it a few weeks, and then it's gonna smack once again. Just and you would have such a large rotation. You would have an incalculable, innumerable amount of rabbit holes and activities and lanes that you can go down. And um and they say, oh, if you do that, then you don't really have a true self, and because you're putting on all these different caps and stuff like that. And it's like, well, your but your true self is it better be fluid if you're gonna live forever. You know what I mean? Like you better be able to don a lot of different hats if you're gonna live forever. um I feel like I know people that literally could just like get up and like eat shit, sleep, watch TV like forever. But that's not my vision of using immortality to your advantage. Um yeah, people around you, and you would have to, like, I don't know what you would do for like a partner. Like that's the thing. Like you could get lonely or whatever because like all your partners will age, but you won't, and stuff like that. So you would have to like perpetually have like, regardless of what the cycle is, it's gonna end up a cycle. You know what I mean? If you're keeping 20 something year olds for like 10 years and then wishing them wishing them well, versus if you're taking on partners for like 80 years until they pass. Like either way it's going to be cyclical. Like you're going to, partners, friends, all this stuff, like all these people are going to have to be new and new, and it's going to be like you're gonna get so sick and tired of like small talk. I can tell you that. But I would argue that like even if you become really wise to the point where like small talk is ridiculously trivial to you, um I think beautiful females will still combined with what you would perceive to be naivety because you're 700 years old. um I think that would be that will always be refreshing. um I don't think that would be much of a problem. You know what I mean? um and if you want intellectual stimulation, you would have access to the greatest minds on earth for any given generation, because everybody wants to hear from the guy that's lived forever. I don't know if you would hide your ish, like hide the fact that you've been alive forever. I don't think you'd be able to, like you would just age on the books. You would be like, yeah, like, shh, I don't know what you want me to say, government. Like I'm just 1100 years old, and I just, you know what I mean. Like you would still have to pay taxes and stuff like that, you know, and so you'd probably be world famous. You'd probably be like humanity's like biggest thing. Like humans might think you were God if you lived for like if you've been lived for like thousands of years. But like I think each every it would, I don't know how like people would buy that though. Like that's interesting. I think I think it would be interesting. You better start documenting yourself at start documenting yourself throughout the years to prove that you've actually existed for all these years. And then but assuming that, humanity believes in you, assuming that humanity believes that you are who you say you were and that you've been alive forever, or for thousands of years, um, you would have access to some of the greatest minds on the planet at any given time in any given field, and that would be cool. You know, um, I think if you ever made like a statement, it would carry a lot of weight. It plays on Fox or it plays on CNN. What you said as the immortal Bob, you know, um, the immortal 7,000-year-old Ralph, you know, the immortal Stacy, and I don't think drugs should be legal. And bam, like next thing you know, humanity like that carries a lot of weight. You have a lot of political power after you've existed for a few thousand years. Um, can always be like, I've seen it all. I've seen it all. And like that's another reason I would want to be alive and stuff like that, like forever, because I want to see what happens with humanity. Like I'm so curious, like how this shit's gonna play out. Like it's so crazy, like the time that we actually live in. everybody thinks their time is like cutting edge or whatever, but that's not really the case. That's not really the case. Like we can see pre-industrial revolution shit was the same for centuries and centuries and centuries, and then post-industrial revolution, and then it just accelerated, and then the technological, the computer era, the digital era or whatever, accelerated, bam, even more. And like, you look around at our cities, you look at our infrastructure around the world, like we already be looking like a sci-fi place. Like, the only reason we don't really be looking like 100% sci-fi is because there's no flying cars. And flying cars are dangerous because they could fall out of the sky. And that's really bad. And it just doesn't, I don't, but outside of flying cars, like, it's crazy where we're at. It's crazy where we're at as a species and stuff like that. And I want to see, are we going? Are we going to Mars? Are we like colonizing these other planets? And then what? And then what? Like, let's say we establish a lunar base. We establish a base on Mars, and we grow and we grow, and now we have moon humans, and we have Martians that are humans, and but Martians, and like, so then what? Then do we go to like one of Titan's moons? Do we like can we like eh, like, how would those societies look? First of all, like, what would a Martian look like after 400 years? Like, I'm not gonna be able to see what a Martian is gonna look like in after 400 years of Mars reproduction. And that's, that keeps me up sometimes. That's very unfortunate. And then where would we go from there? And then does it turn into Star Trek? And then what about us with like AI and robotics and stuff like that? Are we gonna like are we all gonna be cyborgs? Like, that's gonna that that might happen in our fucking lifetime. But if it doesn't happen in our lifetime, that can't be too many centuries away, you know? And but if it doesn't happen in our lifetime, then we miss that. And it's like, no, I you know, and I know a lot of people watching this are like, oh, that's super optimistic. Really, what's gonna happen is like some kind of death or destruction, or like some crazy event or whatever. And then, like, what would happen to you if you were immortal, and then the apocalypse, you were immortal, you took this pill, you're supposed to live forever, and then the apocalypse comes, and then you see God and his angels, and they got their swords, and they're like breathing fire, and they're like, now you have to deal with the apocalypse. And like, what happens to you then? What happens to you then? What happens when you're immortal in the apocalypse? Rapture comes and stuff. That would be wild. Um, but yeah, let me know kind of what you think about like living forever and stuff like that. You know. Um, so I'm gonna move to the next thing. Um, that's a tough. It's a tough transition. That's a tough. Like, you want to like you kind of want to go slow down and like kind of get an off ramp and then transition into the next thing. But I've noticed a lot of times, like I'll just be like da 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 on a subject, and I'm like, all right, that's good. Like I like let's just do the next thing or whatever. So maybe one of the next things I should work on um is gonna be transit should be transitions. You know what I mean? Um I don't know if it's worth the it probably is. It probably makes a better viewing experience if you have like smooth transitions, I would say, right? Um I think I do okay transition sometimes. But yeah, a lot of times I'm just like, all right, topic, topic, topic. Nothing else left to say about topic. Next topic. And I'd be leaving off on like a unclosed like loop sometimes too or whatever. But um I was reading this book, soft brag, but they um they mentioned the opposite of deja vu. Like we've all heard of deja vu, and they were talking about something called deja vu is when you're in a new experience and you feel like it's happened before. You've been there before. Uh this is called this is this is Vujade, which is Vujade, and it's being in a situation that you have been in before and seeing it through a new lens with a different perspective, like it is brand new. And that's Vujade. Yeah, yeah. Um, and then I found out um I found out today that the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man. Um, I found out something about the Muffin Man today because, I often catch myself humming along to that song, and you're not gonna judge me for that. I sing the Muffin Man throughout my day-to-day life. I think it's a good song. I think it doesn't get the credit that it deserves, and I would love to see somebody remix it and really really bring it to life and do justice to the Muffin Man song as it so deserves, you know. Um, but I was asking my coworkers, if they knew him, this Muffin Man, and I decided to. Nobody knew. I mean, they knew his location. They knew he was on Drury Lane. Um, Drury Lane. That's a hard place to pronounce, but they knew he was on Drury Lane, and but they couldn't tell me who he was, and so I asked Chat GPT. Um, I didn't ask. ChatGPT, who is the Muffin Man? Though I am doing that now. I asked it if it could tell me the lore uh, behind the Muffin Man, and it does have a real world origin. Um, it stems from Victorian London, um, specifically or especially rather the area around Drury Lane. There were street vendors, and they were called Muffin Men, and they walked around selling English muffins door to door. Um, Apparently, this was before bakeries were invented or were everywhere, I should say. This so bakeries existed, but they were scarce, and so the vendors were well known in their neighborhoods. Um, the rhyme basically acted as a little repetitive street chant to identify the vendor and signal to kids and families that the Muffin Man was nearby. So kind of like when the ice cream truck has the jingles on its bell, but this is manual. Like the kids in the street did it. And so that's crazy that I find myself singing this song, The Muffin Man, all the time, and I get really happy about it. And I do like muffins, and I've also really been fascinated in the past by the Titanic, and so the only logical conclusion is that I am my in my previous life I was uh, there, and I did a lot of carrying over uh, to here. I've always felt like an old soul, so I think I probably did, you know, sing for the Muffin Man. All right. So, and I probably, I probably was on the Titanic, at some point. But I digress. I keyed. But I also digress. Um, that was the Muffin Man. And then yeah, so another interesting question came up today. While I was like minding my own business and doing my job. Um Somebody said soap or somebody said soup. And I still don't know which one they said. Could have been soap, could have been soup, but we were debating. It didn't really turn into a debate. I didn't really have time to think on it, and because something else just had like happened right after that. But we were debating like what we were about to debate what would be worse, soup that was soap or soap that was soup. You know what I mean? And so like, what would you rather have, guys? Would you rather have to you take a shower, but like the bar of soap is actually like condensed, preserved chicken noodle soup, kind of like in a block. Um, you just you just chicken noodle soup. Or you get a bowl of water, and there's some soap in it. Be a little bit. No, I mean if it's soap soup, you would need like chunks, right? You would need chunks, and you would need, so it would have to be like soapy water. Of course, it's gonna be soapy water naturally. So you would do water, and then you would do like, depending on how thick you want it, like you could just do like a whole bar, kind of crushed up, or you could do it kind of like chunky, like pieces. You know what I mean? So it's more like tomato soup, or like or like a chowder if you, and then so you just eat the bowl of soap soup. I think that would be worse because I mean I know if you have like sensory issues, you don't want a soup soap. Um, but man, that soap soup doesn't sound too healthy. You know what I mean? So I think I'm gonna have to say it's preferential to choose the soup soap, the soap that is made out of soup, than the soup that is made out of soap. You know, you know what I mean? I think so. Um, and then so I'm just gonna, you know what I mean, idiot mean. So I'm just gonna do um today in history to wrap it with a bow. What happened today in history? Think anything good? December 3rd? Can you anything come to mind December 3rd? 1818, Illinois becomes the 21st state. 1971, Indo-Pakistani War of 1971 begins. Full-scale war breaks out between India and Pakistan, leading to the eventual independence of Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is like 50 years old approximately, give or take. And then 1984, what sound does Bhopal, Bhopal, Bhopal disaster. A toxic gas leak at the Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal, India. Okay, so there was a gas leak in India. It killed thousands. Um, like I said in a previous episode, like that's a lot. That's like a lot of people. Like thousands is a lot. 19, so that was in what? Big world events. So they categorized this for me. Science and Medicine, 1967, first human heart transplant. Oh wow. Huh. Um, the first text message was sent in 1992 on this day, and in 1994, PlayStation launched in Japan. Um, but so I mean, I should have. the science, I mean the world events was would have been suffice. Um so India made the news a couple times on this day. So it was the Bhopal disaster, which was the huge gas leak that killed thousands in Bhopal, India. That was 84. And then 71 was the India and Pakistan war, which led to the eventual independence of Bangladesh. And then 1918 was Illinois becoming the 21st state. All right, that's all right. That should do. That's good with the things and stuff like that. All right, y'all. It's been real. I thank y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all got something to kind of like, oh, just like think on, chew on, and different stuff like that. And I'm glad you're alive and stuff like that. So you know, um, keep doing you, and yeah, God willing, next week, back at it like a bad habit, or back at it like a crack addict with a bad habit, or no, I'm not gonna go down a rabbit hole. But yeah, anywho, goodbye.